If you've ever had a moment in your life where you were very angry at a person, where you judged a person, where you were jealous, or where you caused division, I could stand up here and tell you that you're a horrible person. But I won't do that, mainly because I've done all those things, and also because I'd rather say something else to you. I'd rather say, based on this gospel, that you can be a great saint, no matter what you've done in your life. Even if you consider yourself very close to God and you come to church all the time and you still are struggling with understanding how you fall into these certain sins, you can be a great saint. Because the apostles that we heard of in the gospel for today, they were dealing with this jealousy and this pride and division among their group. And these are, out of all of the world, if you think about it, Jesus chose 12 guys out of the whole world to be his closest group. And he didn't find anybody perfect. No, he didn't, because we're all sinners. Because we all struggle with certain things that cause us to fall into sin. And that's actually how St. Paul described it. He says, even St. Paul, who is he is definitely one of the greatest saints. Without him, Christianity would not be spread as it was, without his bravery and his conviction and his faith in Jesus Christ. And St. Paul, in the reading that we read before the gospel, he describes himself as just going through this interior battle. Very relatable text that he says. He says, I want to do what is right, but I can't do it. I know what is right, but I can't do it. Because there's something in me, he said, it's the sin that dwells in me that pulls me to do the wrong thing. And even though I don't want to do it, I still end up doing it. And he said, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ, that he said, I serve the Lord now. And that's the only way ultimately. And we're going to look at what Jesus did with the apostles to see how we, in our sinfulness, in our human weakness, to see how we can not just be horrible people, but how we can actually become the saints that we are called to be. And it's based on what Jesus did to the apostles. He notices James and John come up to him with their mom, and they ask to sit at his right hand and at his left hand in his kingdom. And the other apostles got upset about that. Another gospel says that they had private conversations among themselves about who was the greatest. And they were arguing. The disciples of Jesus were arguing about who is better than the other. And then Jesus notices this. Just imagine Jesus noticing you in whatever it is that you struggle with, whatever desire that you give into, whatever vice that you have. And imagine Jesus noticing you, and think based on this what he would do or what he would say to you. Because he calls the apostles. That's the first thing. He called them to himself. Stop talking about whatever it is you're talking about. Stop and come to me and listen. And that's a first step for us. Stop and listen to Jesus. We give in so much to these interior thoughts and these battles, which so much of the time are bad and lead us to do bad things. Stop listening to them and read the Bible. Literally. How do you get bad thoughts to stop coming into your mind? Well, think about something good. Read something good. Open your mind, open your ears to something good. Read the Bible. Seriously. Listen to the words of Jesus. That's a good first step. And then notice what Jesus says. He says, look at others. So observe. Look at the world. Look at how they do things. First of all, the world does things in an evil way most of the time, and including with this. He's talking about authority. And that's what they were concerned about authority, about leadership. He said the rulers of the Gentiles, like the non-Christians, the non-Jews, they make their authority felt over people, as in they dominate over people. They make it known that they are in charge. How many times have you seen, for example, like a husband going up to his wife and saying, I'm in charge of the house and you must listen to me at all times. Now we do believe in the Bible, like it says, wives be submissive to your husbands, but it says, as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church. And so many times we understand just one part and we make it worldly. We take the Bible and we make the Bible worldly. We make the Bible fit according to our perspective. And so men will take that verse, for example, and will say, oh, I'm in charge, and you must listen to me in every single thing that I say. And they forget the line that comes right afterward, which says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Yes, both are true. Wives, be submissive to your husbands, and husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. That means that a husband has to lead in humility and in sacrifice and in love, because that's what Jesus did. And that's what we get when we fully hear Jesus. When we don't only hear what the world says, or when we don't only hear what we want to hear. When we fully hear Jesus. And we will hear his message of sacrifice and of love, which is the only answer. The love of Jesus and the sacrifice that he gave for us is the only answer. What does he say? Look at how the world does it. They like to dominate. They like to use authority. But look at how the Son of Man does it. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. And that's how it will be with us. If we want to become saints, we have to be like Jesus. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be very challenging. He was telling the disciples, we're going up to Jerusalem right now. And the Son of Man will be arrested. And he will be condemned to death and he will be crucified. But the apostles obviously ignored that. They didn't want to think about that. They wanted to think of only the good and happy and comfortable times. But for us, brothers and sisters, there's a reason why we have crucifixes everywhere. Why we look at the crucifix, why we wear a crucifix, why we have one in our car, why we have one in our home. Because St. Paul says we preach Christ crucified. Because if we do not die with Jesus, we will not rise with him. And our life is walking after Jesus, carrying our crosses, going after him, sacrificing with him. And that's how our relationships will be holy. That's how they'll be built on love and on humility. Is if we focus on Jesus, on the sacrifice that he did for us, not focusing on ourselves and on what we want. And this is how we'll be able to win the interior battle, by dying to ourselves and offering ourselves as a sacrifice to Jesus Christ, which we can obviously do it in the Mass. We remember every Mass that we are offering our hearts with Jesus, as he is offering himself to his Father. We offer ourselves with him so that we can receive all of the graces necessary to become humble and to become virtuous, and so that our souls can be saved and we can be the saints who Jesus wants us to be. Amen.